Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Don Gringo Opinion or Opportunity channel. So today I'm very fortunate. I got Amir with us today. I can't say in the studio because we're still in the pandemic type situation, but I got Amir from 4B here. He's the founder of the 4B, I would say, media platform. Do we want to call it?
Social news platform.
Social news. See, I didn't want to say it wrong. I wanted to
Yep.
make sure we get it right. Okay, so let's define the term social news and what 4B is and where it fits in the world today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So it's essentially two different platforms. There's the social media aspect, and then there's the news aspect. So that's why I call it social news. And unfortunately, today the majority of specifically Gen Z and millennials are get their news from social media. And so and the purpose of 4B was to be a neutral platform, but to expose users and readers to the other side, which unfortunately does not happen much today. That happens subconsciously and without us knowing, where we surround ourselves with friends and certain stations and certain, sites that we follow, and we, kind of unintentionally create these bubbles around us, and only view the world from that lens. And so, the purpose of 4B is to expose you outside of your bubble and ultimately to bring people together. We see a lot of divisiveness that, consequently, it hurts everyone, whether we know it or not. And so, this is a solution for that. It's a solution kind of for the social media side where, we're kind of in these circles and these just, heated debates and just, ending up with, I want to kill you and I want to kill you. And we're talking about, basically, which color do we like and how do we get from point A to point B in 2 seconds. And there's a lot of reasons for that with the technology and how platforms are monetized, and we can go on and on as to the reasons why. And I don't think it's any one person's fault. There's probably a lot of people to blame, but ultimately we're here as a solution to that and to bring in a civil discourse and understanding. And we're not here to change anybody's mind. So whatever you believe, we respect that. But we do want to make sure that you're exposed to the other side. And, it is the platform's belief that, you have to kind of have all the information to have, a real sense of reality.
Well, I'm looking over here because I got the site up over here, and I'm just looking at all the different topics. So this is kind of weird. So anyone who's watching right now should go to 4b.world. That's their website. It's also in the description, and Amir's information's in the description. So if you want to reach out to Amir, you can do that as well. But yeah, I'm looking at. I mean, there's a wide range of topics on this one. You're not really shying away from anything, are you?
No, not at all. We have 13 categories within the platform, from beauty and makeup to news to science and technology. And essentially, we want to cover the big buckets. And then within those buckets, really dwell into topics that are pretty evenly matched. So we're not here to just give you the headlines or just, hey, this is what happened today. It's on the most, contentious or controversial topics, and, that people are divided on.
So what's different about your platform too, which because a lot of people, like you say, you're not a social media platform, don't realize that this is actually like articles. Like this are people who write articles and then they write their comments and opinions afterwards and have an intellectual debate. Like you're not actually seeing video on this particular platform.
Yeah, that's a video is actually, something that's in development, but all of the content is by the 4B staff. And so the users do not produce or contribute in the content. And so the reason for that is, all of our content is cited, it's referenced. We have an editorial team that fact checks it. And so we want to ensure that although we're displaying two sides of any topic, the writers must abide by a very, very strict, a short form, concise, fact-based. There's a couple other guidelines that we have, and that way it ensures that that the user gets real information and not misleading information and so on and so forth, what we see today. And so we try to combat that, but ultimately the real neutrality is when we give equal opportunity to each side and to each writer, whether from word count to space, and be able to make the points, and so it kind of balances out. And that's where 4B comes in, is that, we make sure everything is fair. Outside of that, the best idea should win, and the best argument should win. And, that's up to the users and the writers to present that in a factual way.
I'm just not sure I agree with the term win, because that implies there needs to be a loser in an ideology standpoint, right? And I think that might be, because I'm looking here at the polling, like I'm glad to see you can cast your vote on stuff. I'm also glad to see like you're not seeing the actual real time results of who's casting, because someone may just say, you know what, that person's winning, so I'm going to go this way. I mean, it's an actual chance to get, I would say, real world data without saying any bias. But the thing of winning and losing, should an article, so some people are better debaters than others. It doesn't mean that the information they're presenting is wrong. It's just the way they're presenting it isn't as very appealing as others.
Yeah, when I say winning, I should elaborate. I don't mean winning and losing, meaning, hey, you lost, I won, or vice versa. What I mean is the idea, there's one reality, regardless of what we're talking about. There's only one reality. Now, we all have different perspectives to that reality, and some of us are maybe closer to that reality than others. But there's no denying there's one reality in any topic and anything we're talking about. And so when I say winning idea, meaning that what I mean is this thought or idea or solution is closer to reality than the other. And so that's where we present the facts and present the arguments, and in the end you can't both be right, depending on what the topic is. And so I want to emphasize, I don't mean winning meaning a person. I mean winning is the idea.
No, and listen, I get it. I just want to make sure that people who are watching don't get the wrong say on this. And
Yeah.
I told you when we first talked that if you said something, I was going to probably have you redefine it. And this is one of those things, because I think it's you being the founder. I think people should have an understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, right? And I truly believe you're sincerely doing it for the right reasons. But I don't want you accidentally misrepresenting something. So I would rather you clarify than get through it. But I want to say the site looks pretty clean. It looks very simple, which is beautiful in that aspect. So it doesn't take a lot. I mean, we got to do something.
One thing I wanted to note on that. So the site we have, it is auxiliary, it is working. But our primary focus on our resources and what we're actually native to are the apps. So we're on the App Store and the Google Play Store. That's where we want, that's where we have most of our users, and that's where we want to direct our resources. It's just a lot, the user experience is a lot more organic, authentic. It's native. There's a lot more things that we can do within the app on the phone than we can on the website. So that's really where we push. The website we actually added later, because a lot of people like to read when they're at work or on the computers, and so we kind of added that feature, and it's there. Obviously everything works great, but just wanted to make that note.
No, absolutely. Let's face it. I mean, mobile use is bigger and bigger, and of course iPads and things of that nature. I mean, in my household I got 2 iPads and multiple devices, so better for me here obviously to talk to you and look at it and ask you questions about it than it would be on my phone, thinking people think I'm ignoring you. No, I think it's pretty good, but where have you seen? I mean, first off, when did 4B start? Let's go there.
Yeah, so it depends on what you mean by start. So the idea, probably it's been a couple of years, but actual platform, it's been last year when we launched, and even then it was kind of during the pandemic, and so it's been tough because the development team was sick, was out, and so it's just been a nightmare timing. And it literally happened right at the beginning when we launched, and so we had no idea. Well, nobody had any idea it was coming. So probably the worst timing ever to launch a platform. But we made it through, and we were able to push through. It delayed things significantly because of that. And so the idea actually came to me over many, many years. I've just been busy with life, and I just got frustrated with having conversations with people, and in the end, kind of realizing that it's not really about who's right or wrong. It's not about the facts. It's really that none of us have kind of the complete picture, including myself. And when I realized that, I said, hey, if we just got everybody more information, and specifically the other side, I think we would make more informed decisions, and ultimately we would all benefit from that. And so it's and it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to change your position. Many times, if you hear the other side, you might even cement your position even more. But just it's very important to expose yourself to the other side. And then ultimately, we live on one planet, and we have to interact with each other whether we like it or not. And so I think that it's important that we understand each other, understand where the other person is coming from. And that's where I would kind of concede and say that, there is not necessarily a winner or a loser. Everybody is technically, in most cases trying to do their best, not that everybody can't be right, but, if we want to, progress together as humanity and society, we can't be going down the path we are now, which is just, madness, to say the least.
So why a social news platform instead of a social media platform?
Yeah, good question. So, the social platform, if you look at it, they don't really control. Let me rephrase that. So they do actually. My lights just went off. It was a timer. Can you see me? Okay.
Yeah, it's a little dark,
Okay,
but I can see you.
Got it. So the social platforms technically aren't supposed to be, guiding conversations, or they're not supposed to be producing topics and things like that. People do. So it's completely out of our control. And so if we want to affect real change, we have to actually present the facts and the topics in an undivisive way that people can have real conversations. And then also within the platform, we create an environment where we can have that productive discourse. So that is as a dumb example, if you have a restaurant and it's a really nice restaurant, the waiters, the food, et cetera, if you see people's behavior, in most cases, they behave differently than they do, let's say, if they're in a fast food restaurant. And there's nothing that they physically changed, or there's no rules that they change. It's just that people behave different in environments. So kind of taking, that into our platform, if we encourage things, so we're kind of anti-censorship. So if we encourage things through a rewards program for example, making a comment that a lot of people vote that they like, will encourage that behavior. And if there's other kind of behaviors within the platform that we encourage and incentivize and reward, it will create that good productive discourse behavior versus the trolls, which you see a lot of kind of on social media today, where they're just saying things maybe purposely to piss somebody off or whatever their motives are. You can still do that on our platform, but you're kind of, you're not incentivized to do that. Versus the social media platforms, there's, they don't have any kind of incentive. They're just, kind of, making sure that they have click through and they have, a lot of comments and engagement so they can run their ads and so on and so forth. So it's just a completely different outlook on it.
No, I can understand. I appreciate the psychology of it. I mean, obviously, you're kind of going against mainstream psychology and thinking in that aspect, which is obviously nice, but is going to be harder, I would imagine, for you to get that market share because of the fact people want that instant gratification, seeing videos and having their stuff up and whatnot have you. So I appreciate you taking on the challenge. Let's just leave it at that. Who picks the topics?
So we have a small team, and so we it's a combination of the team scouring what's trending, and just there's a few different reference points we use, and right now the content isn't we're not putting as much content as let's say a mainstream media at this point, so we're working up to that. But so we kind of have our pulse, and we specifically make sure that it's diverse. So it again that there's indirect ways where we can kind of have bias, and we have to be very, very cognizant of that, including the titles that we use, the topics that we use. You can kind of
why the titles that you use? Because right now, with you being a social news platform instead of a social media platform, I'm not saying incendiary titles, but I would imagine that controversial titles would especially help you in the long run as far as getting viewership to people who want to at least read the article.
Yeah, I mean, we have controversial topics and controversial articles. What I'm saying is we have to be very careful. For example, if we do an article to say, is Donald Trump racist, right? Then we have to consequently do an article that says, is Joe Biden racist? And so it's just kind of an indirect example where, you can do one, but you have to do something on the other side, or else if you do too much of that in one, slanted one direction, your audience will pick up on that and they'll say, you know what, I've seen a lot of this, but I haven't seen a lot of that. These guys are biased, these guys are conservative, or these guys are liberal, or whatnot. And so we have to kind of be very cognizant of those things, even though that's not our intention. It's difficult because that's the way the world is, and all of the major networks are doing it, although they're saying they're not.
Of course they are.
Clearly are. Yeah, but all of them are saying they're unbiased and they're just speaking the truth, but none of them are.
But you should do that. You should do that. Is Donald Trump racist? Show every point he is and he isn't, and do Joe Biden. Because I'll tell you what, there isn't no one from that goddamn generation who isn't racist, and I don't care what anyone wants to say. They grew up in a generation where racism was more prevalent than it is today for my generation and your generation. And I just had this conversation before we got on the show with a gentleman out of Florida that I know. He's an African-American gentleman. And we just had this whole thing. Like, even with that, and that's a very sensitive topic. My wife is Mexican. Right from Mexico, literally. She came here when she was 32 to be with me. I mean, she left a very good life that was better than when she met me, to be with me. And I look at it this way: we can't have kids, and it is what it is. But if we did have kids, they would be mixed. And ever since the civil rights movement, everyone who was wise and smart for their generation at the time all said one thing: time heals all wounds. And it's happening because the children and the grandchildren and the great goddamn grandchildren are more mixed than they ever would be. And, my neighbor, one parent's black, one is white, and the kid's mulatto. And, I asked him one day personally, I said, with everything going on, how do you feel? He goes, I think it's stupid. And he's a college kid. I think it's stupid. Why? And he was real simple about it. My parents raised me that if I say I'm black, I'm denying half my family. And if I say I'm white, I'm denying the other half of my family. So he goes, why do I have to pick at all?
Yep.
Right. I mean, honestly, time is healing all wounds. And the only person in this whole world right now who I would say is not goddamn racist is the younger generation. They're less racist.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. So just to start with, we did do Donald Trump is racist and Joe Biden is racist both at the same exact time we published it, just so you know, and for that reason. But, I think that, unfortunately, I would have to probably disagree with your last point about the younger generation. I think they are more racist, but it's a different type of racist. So, for me, if you identify somebody by their race or, the skin color or any of those kind of metrics, to me, that's racist, inherently racist to begin with. Like, I don't understand why somebody should be identified by the color of their skin. Like that to me has always been boggling. I understand why they do it. But personally, I think there's so many other things like your personality, your work ethic. There's so many other things that are, to me personally, are significantly more important than the color of your skin. That's just me. Now, going back to us and what we're doing, and the reason why I did this is, not just with racism, but all of these other topics.
No, of course, but that was a beautiful segment for me because I just had this conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was like, well, yeah. And it's for me, I'm older than you, obviously. You can see the white hairs in the stash, even with the camera. And if I had my beard, I would be even grayer. So, but the thing here is I look at it going, it was a perfect segment on a hot topic issue that will never go away until all the older generation is gone, as far as I'm concerned. And we stop asking certain questions. I mean, honestly, we caused the own thing by asking the questions. I'm glad you asked it. And I'm glad you gave an answer like you did. And that kind of is key, is, stop asking certain things and we'll stop thinking certain things. Right.
Yeah. I mean, censorship is, again, I think us on the platform, me personally, I'm super anti-censorship. I think that's the, it's a really, really bad thing. And, I know we don't have time, but if we went back in history, I love history.
No, go ahead, because this right here, as far as I'm concerned, anyone who's watching, anyone who would have a question on this this right here, because obviously me and you are two totally different cultures, right?
Yep.
But you obviously did this for a reason, and this just gives people to the content of your character on why
Yep.
we're doing even a hot topic like that. Why would you do that? Because obviously you're not white like me, and obviously today I'm the horrible white bad guy of the world. You know, I'm from New England, my friend. I grew up in New England. My great grandparents who came over on the goddamn boat fought in the Revolutionary War. We've never
Yep.
been outside of New England, so here I am. So I'm the bad guy. So I'll be bad guy, and I'll ask you the bad guy question. Why?
Yeah.
Why is race important to you? Then let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, well, I mean, I think I mentioned, like, to me, race is zero. It means nothing to me as an individual. I can't speak for anybody else. But I do think, like with the platform, what I'm attempting to do is that, you can't change somebody's minds with facts. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. And so, facts don't matter. It's, the feelings and the attachment, all those human characteristics that trump that. And so if someone believes that race matters, I can give them all the facts and it's not going to change their mind. But if I create a platform where they're exposed to the other side and there's debate back and forth, even then, they're not going to change their mind. But over time, through experiences, through life experiences, and you put seeds in people's minds, people do change. It takes a long time, but people do change. And so that's what I want to create, an environment where, we have productive discourse. And ultimately, if racism is healthy for society, which I don't think so, then that should prevail. But the only way that the best idea will prevail if you created an environment. You can't play God. And unfortunately, censorship, going back to history, is equivalent to playing God. And even though it's good intention, when we say, don't listen to that person because they're bad, they're going to lead you on a bad path. Well, if you censor that and you censor people like him or her, whoever that is, then you're essentially censoring an ideology, right? Or a thought process. And we don't know, because we're not God, we don't have that infinite amount of information, if that's beneficial somehow, right? And so, as an example, the 3/5, compromise, for example, is the first thing that came to mind because I talked about history. Most people, when they talk about that, most people don't even know about it. But
well, explain for people who don't know what it is, exactly what it is, in a really short summary.
Yeah. So the 3/5 compromise, essentially, it alluded to Black Americans at the time, that their vote was 3/5 of a full vote. And so if I say that to a random person now, there was North and South, which were the two distinct kind of ideologies, you would assume that the South was campaigning for 3/5 of a vote. But in reality, it was the North. But the reasons were different, right? The reasons were because if the South had more votes, they would have more power. And so it was kind of a contradiction. Excuse me, one second. Sorry about that. I got a page. So it was a contradiction. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, it was the reason why the 3/5 was perceived differently.
Yeah, and so I think that I think that the North, I think they had good intentions. Like they weren't doing it to put Black people down. They were doing it in their mind to ultimately help them. And it was a stage in time, and it was a stage at that time. And for people today that says, hey, slavery was evil, everybody was a part of it. Yes, but if I transported you in that time, what would you be able to do? Absolutely nothing. You have to work within the system. And so, yes, there were people who were working against it and people who were working towards it. And the people who were working towards it, let's say the 3/5 compromise, I think they were good intentioned. When we look at it now, you're like, wow, that was terrible. Like, why would you do it?
But
again,
then, like you point out, at that time, it might have been the best possible solution for that moment.
Absolutely.
And listen, I don't think there's anyone who agrees at this point in our history that racism is a good thing.
Right.
And that's why I said I think the most beautiful thing was everyone time heals all wounds. We're going to breed ourselves out of race. We're going to breed ourselves out of race, and love prevails. And in that whole cliche, you whatever you want to say it, but love in the whole aspect will prevail, and we will be bred out of race, and we will be just male, female, or whatever today happens. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go down that road. That's a whole nother story, but
Right.
I am going to be a traditionalist on that one. I'm sorry. I don't care what you want to
Yeah.
change. You want to check your DNA, you're still male or female, period, the end for
Right.
me.
Right.
And sex and gender are not separate. You may want them to be. I may want to be goddamn Big Bird. I may put on a costume. It don't make me Big Bird. So I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm not trying to offend, but
Right.
I just think that we're pushing social boundaries that are more destabilizing than stabilizing on certain aspects.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you on a government level and a policy level, but I disagree with you on an individual level. If I want to identify as a rock, I should be able to identify as a rock. Now, like it shouldn't be up to you or anybody else to say, hey, you know what, Amir, you're not a rock. Now,
sure, it should. What's the definition of a rock?
What's that?
What's the
No, I'm
definition?
saying is I feel like a rock. I want to be a rock.
But the problem is define a rock.
What's that? Well, whatever my definition. Obviously, I don't believe I'm a rock, but I'm saying if my definition.
And I'm just saying that the flip side to me, because obviously we and you deal in an atmosphere here and on your platform where words matter, and words have definitions. Okay.
Yep.
And I don't care how much you want to do something, just because you feel it, you can't change a definition to fit what you feel. And that's the way I look at it, because if I turn around and say something today, I'm going to offend. And I don't mean to offend, but if I offend, I don't care, because, hey, listen, this is my ideology. This is how I was raised. This is what I believe. And I believe that, in a lot of good policies, and I believe in people for the most part, but I don't believe you have the right to go stupid and crazy because you feel like you have the right to go stupid and crazy. That's just not how the world works. And if everything, and this is the funny thing, your platform kind of embodies this in its own way. To some degree, I don't care what anyone says, you believe in the rule of law. If you didn't, why are you goddamn trying to change them? Why are you trying to change every goddamn definition, every policy, everything ever goddamn made? Because at the heart of it, you believe in the rule of law and policy. You just don't fucking like it. Right. Okay.
Well,
so your platform, which is great, you are the rule of law, and you're saying all sides get a chance to speak. Equally, correct. And so there's the rule of law, and you can't get away from that.
Right. What I'm saying is I respect your thought process where you deny, and again, obviously I'm not identifying as a rock, but as an example, if I did, I respect your position of, hey, that's garbage. I don't acknowledge you, Amir, and that's fine. As much as I respect someone like, if someone in my position said to the rock, where I say I would stand with you is in policy. So, we have to run a society, and in order to have an efficient, productive society where all of us benefit, and make no mistake, all of the, billions of people who died and sacrificed and went through all kinds of stuff are the reason why we're here today. We're able to live stream and do all of these things is because of them, and enjoy, electricity, all the stuff that we enjoy. I know a lot of people like to think, oh no, I'm on my own. No, you're not on your own. You would probably not be alive, or you would be, living a very, very different life. And so we do need to appreciate, all of the people that came before us. That doesn't mean that, they're perfect. One of the things I think common misconception, kind of going on this point, is that when we agree with somebody or we like somebody, somehow we're in a position in society, we make them perfect and we defend them as if they're perfect. And when somebody does something wrong, we all of a sudden make every action that person does somehow wrong. And so, again, we live in these extremes, and we have to get away from that. And that's partly, again, I can go on and on about our platform, is that when we expose to the other side, you kind of realize, okay, I agree with this person. That doesn't mean I agree with everything the person says. And that doesn't mean if they make a mistake, I'm going to defend them. If they made a mistake, they made a mistake, but they're still right in this point. So you can be right on this point and wrong another point.
Amir, I'm loving it, because listen, we may not be explicitly talking about 4B, but let's be honest. You're the founder. You are 4B. So
Yep.
if you have these beliefs, I mean, honestly, get them out there, because as far as I'm concerned, I won't buy into your product because it's a social news platform. I'm going to buy into it because I'm talking to you and there's a reason why we're doing it, right?
Yep.
And that's, to me, who's in sales and marketing and stuff of that nature. To me, that's what sells, because there's 100 other people who are doing social media platforms where I can get instant gratification,
Yep.
right? But you're not playing that game. So why do I want to play this game with you? And if you're going to be the guy with the messaging, I better understand why the message.
Yep. And just so you know, like we are kind of playing that game, or we're taking elements from that game, but we're not, our purpose is not the game. So we are taking some of the things that, help with engagement and things like that, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure we have a large platform, we have users, and then, or else we can't make change. We can't make change with a few thousand people. We need millions of people on it in order to make that effective change. And so it's a balance, but where we come from as a platform is that we don't play God and say, okay, you're going to have to, behave this way. You're going to have behave this way. We're just going to create that equal environment. And again, make productive discourse a norm. And then, let the best ideas come out, and, let the worst ideas be shown. Like if someone is, someone is crazy, let's say in public, and they're a threat to society and they're saying things that are dangerous, what I would say is give them an extra microphone, give them an additional platform. What that does is that exposes that person. But if we censor that person, not only is those ideas not going to go away, they're probably going to be stronger, because, when things are underground, people somehow take it as more legitimate, and, it's not talked about. And so if somebody has a dumb idea, nobody challenges that idea.
What's the percentage? Because you've done obviously more studying than us, and I have recently, because you're in this environment 24/7 as far as competing with big dog competitors. But you were touching on it, but we never went down this road. But obviously, if you tell someone you can't watch, you can't have, you can't look, you can't taste, what's the percentage of people that cross that border because you told them you can't?
Well, I mean, I can only speak to my platform. I don't have enough knowledge to speak in general in human
I would
behavior.
just
But
listen. I'm going to use the term
yeah,
guesstimate, guess, and
yeah,
estimate as a professional now who's been in this environment for 2 years, trying to
got it.
build your platform. And I'm saying, I'm not going to say this is exact, but
Yeah,
you're, from what you've seen in your platform and what your expectations would be on other platforms. What do you think? 3 out of 5 people are going to go look for that content because you told them no? I mean, are we talking 5 out of 10? I mean, what's the
yeah,
ratio are we looking at? Because we're censoring something and you're
yeah,
anti-censorship. What is that percentage? If you told someone no, don't do it, just like a child,
right,
no, don't do it, they're
right.
going to go do it.
Yeah, I mean, I like to be accurate, so I can say something that's safe. So I can say it's well over 50%. It's significantly more than that, but I can comfortably say it's well over 50% from my experience, my personal experience, and what I've seen, and the little research that I've done. It's not even close. And so I think a lot of marketing strategies actually kind of are rooted in that foundation. They use those tactics to really drive their primary, marketing campaign, just based off of that. And so it's very, very powerful. And I can give you countless examples over history where, many times it's unintentional and they ride the wave. And now today, it's just so much more sophisticated, the marketing kind of space, where that's actually a primary tool. And people, it's just, humans haven't changed. We just are a lot smarter and more adept as to, what drives us and what doesn't. It's a really common misconception that, people 2,000 years ago were dumb, or like morally very differently, or they're just different. It's just they were just in a different environment. And so, we're not any better or worse than people back then. We just live in a very, very different environment. But we have the same needs, we have the same desires, same wants, and the same percentage of liars and thieves and murderers. It's percentage wise, it's probably pretty similar. It's just that our perception of history and the world around us is different, because we think we're, it's just, that's human nature. We think we're better, than everybody else. And so I think that, but to answer your question, it's a very, very high significant amount of people that do it when you kind of ban.
So you
And that's
start.
partly why censorship is bad. Another reason to add on to the censorship bad kind of list as to why it's ineffective and it's counterproductive.
So what kind of growth have you seen over the past year with the pandemic? Because I know with the pandemic being around, people being at home more, they're not watching TV as much because let's face it, I mean, you've been stuck at home 24/7. You're watching the same goddamn programs over and over. Netflix gets old because they're not, obviously updating their platform with new content on a mass way every month because of the fact even they can only upload so much. So what's the kind of growth that 4B has seen over this past year with the pandemic being around?
Well, percentage wise, it's enormous. It's by far bigger than anybody. But I think unit wise is comparatively is small because we are small as a platform.
Right.
But percentage wise, it's exceeding everyone else.
Is it
out there.
is it outpacing expectations?
Yes. Only I say that because we haven't spent a significant amount in marketing. And so
Don't tell me you're like that guy over in Jersey who spends $200 on a campaign and wins.
Yeah, no, I mean we've spent more than that. I think a lot of a lot of what we do is experimenting, and so we're still developing the platform. Some of the things like you mentioned, no video, like we're looking to add video. We're looking to add a lot of these features that some of these platforms have. We're trying to take the best out of the people that are successful, and then keep our foundation, our neutrality, and making sure we give equal opportunity. But learn from if there's a wheel that works, let's take that wheel. There's no reason to reinvent it. And there are some things that we do come up with and add that nobody has done. But it's futile to say, hey, we're going to just redo everything. We can't, and we don't have the resources to do that. But a lot of it is experimenting, marketing. A lot of it is organic, and we do a lot of A/B testing. We get a lot of feedback from people. It's really, really important. One thing I've learned over the last couple of years, there's a big difference between what people say and what people do. And so obviously we're in the business of trying to figure out what people do. And in many cases, it's, and you probably know, they're two different things. And people don't even realize it. I think if I asked, 10 random people what their behavior is on their phones, and, I asked random questions on who they would select, what they would select or whatever. And then I actually was able to, go through their phones and see that behavior. I would say, out of 10 people, probably 9, if not 10 of them would be, inaccurate. They're not intentionally lying, but I think that, again, it's just the perception of who we are and what we actually are two different things, which is part of why, there's so much divisiveness today. Technology just enhances that. And, when people say the good old days, no, it was the same. People were still ignorant and, divisive and all of that, right. But they didn't have the means to tweet and reach millions of people, or they didn't, the technology is the game changer. And so we're going against the grain in that we're using technology, but we're using it in a very different way. That's bringing people together versus, getting people to fight and be divisive.
So I guess where we're going to go is now the team. So you're getting obviously a good percentage growth. You feel that you're on track, if not exceeding. So obviously that means, your team's going to have to grow at some point. So my question then becomes, how in the world today are you going to bring on writers who are not biased? Because in the day like you brought up of tweeting and social media, there's been so many writers and editors, put on the chopping block because they put something up, and then you can find their history where they're absolutely goddamn lying about something, right? Yeah. They're lying out their butt, and then they get called on it, and then they get fired for it. So how is 4B going to remain in the unbiased philosophy that you are striving to have and struggling to keep? Because I'm going to say it's a struggle, because in today's environment, and I'm the first one, listen, I bring you on, I bring on people on, and I don't always believe with what they're saying, but I believe, and this is the reason why I do this show, it's not about me. When I do an interview, it's about you. And that's why we're talking you. Yes, you have a platform. We want to discuss the platform, but there's a person behind the platform. It's like when I talk to someone running for politics. Everyone's heard the stump speeches before. Everyone's heard the issues of your area before. But what about you? What sells you? So my question here, though, is if you're going to have a writing staff, then you're going to increase this writing staff, and you have the potential to bring on, actual professional writers who have written for newspapers, magazines, things of that nature. How are you going to keep 4B unbiased in this environment?
Yeah, good question. So keep in mind, when you see one of our articles, you get both sides. So you have two writers on every article, and so if let's say, and we don't have this, and we're likely not going to do it because there's not enough balance. But is the Earth flat, right? So let's say if we did,
I just did that video.
Oh, okay. Well, that's.
I can tell you right now, you want someone on the positive side. You want to talk to
Right.
Matt Long. He's in one of my previous videos. I can introduce you.
Okay.
And David Weiss. I just did him last week. He does
Okay.
an amazing presentation. Now, I mean, this guy's ready for any question at any time.
And he believes the Earth is flat.
Absolutely. He put
Okay.
this way,
Yeah.
he believes his hypothesis. He'll tell you he can't prove it, but he will disprove the heliocentric model, and he will bring evidence to that, and he will say, I
Yeah.
believe the Earth is flat. He will never tell
Yeah.
you to believe it.
Yeah.
But I mean, which in my mind is a hell of a salesperson, right? He's
Yeah.
not telling you what to do. He tells you what he believes and why he believes it. And honestly, you've got to watch the 2 episodes if you ever want to
Yeah,
go
no,
there.
definitely. Yeah, I think that, for me personally, I personally believe the Earth is round, but I have a lot of respect, and in many cases, I have more respect for some of the people who believe the Earth is flat. And the reason is not because that, I personally think they're wrong, but it's that thought process, it's that striving for data and not believing everything that's told to you. Like, those are things that are important as humans and for us to grow as a species. Like, we have to question things because clearly we don't have all the answers. And so if we just say, okay, well, whatever we know, we're never going to grow. We would still be living in caves or wherever we were living in the past. And so
The funny
I
thing,
think
the
I
funny
like that.
thing, the funny thing that it makes me question some of the stuff that I was taught. That no, and I'm not saying I'm a believer or not believer, but he brings like really good facts to the table, which would be great for your platform. If David wrote an article for you, was
Yep.
the one thing in both shows he's always said was, listen, in 1920 to 1930, we're not talking the 1800s or anything. We're talking not even a century ago. They were still teaching the Earth was flat.
In some places, I think so. Yeah, and
No,
I don't have enough knowledge
He's
about.
talked to plenty of centennials, and they will tell you that up until about 1930, that they were still teaching.
Yeah, but all the physicists of the world, the major physicists, like they all knew, at that time. And
I'm not going to listen. I'm not arguing it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing that he brings
Yeah.
to the table, that the education system was still teaching that philosophy. And listen, I'm with
100%.
you. Galileo,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards, taught
Yeah.
in school, saying the world is this, that. Listen, I get it, but the interesting fact was they were still teaching it in the U.S. up until about 1930.
Yeah, I personally don't think if majority of people believe something that is true, like that to me is not a supporting argument. Like, I'm not saying for this, I'm saying with anything. Like, if 7 billion people think the moon is made out of cheese, I'm not gonna just believe the moon is made out of cheese just because most people. And I'm just saying is like, that's to me is not personally, but I really do appreciate a lot of flat earthers. I think there's a lot of flat earthers that haven't done the research and don't have the same reasoning behind them, and I probably don't have as much respect for them. But it's probably the same thing with a lot of round earthers, is that they're just doing it because they're just like, yeah, well, they haven't challenged anything. They were told that and they believe it. I don't have much respect for that either. And so I think for me, with this platform, what I've learned is it's not really about who's right or wrong, because I don't think that in many cases there's an absolute right or wrong in many cases. And so it comes down to, we continue to evolve, we continue to grow, we make mistakes. It's fine. It's okay to make a mistake, and I think that's another point, is that, we come to this level, I can't make a mistake. And if I make a mistake, I can't say sorry. And, we can't, some, maybe I'm the only one that makes mistakes around here. It
No,
seems like
I
if
look
you
at it
look at,
this way.
if you look on, yeah,
I love the intellectual conversation, because when you talk to someone like a Matt Long or a David Weiss, they don't talk like they're 3 years old, 5 years old, some redneck or something like that. These are educated people.
yep,
Matt's written a book and stuff like that. I mean, he's a professional. No, so isn't Dave in his own right, very successful. These are not stupid people, and they come prepared, like to
yeah.
and
I mean,
that.
it's the same thing with religion. I mean, you have billions of people who, not billions, but yeah, maybe 2 billion that believe one, and you might have almost 2 billion that live. And if you count on it, there's billions of people who believe something that is completely different. And so, and there's a lot of educated people. There's scientists and people that are a lot smarter than me, that cold-heartedly will die, for those beliefs. And so, it goes back to, like, it's not about the qualifications or your identity. It's just, either you're right or you're wrong. And you could be, a child and not know anything and say something and be absolutely right. And I could be a PhD scientist and be wrong in the same exact thing. Now, the likelihood of that happening is probably less, but that doesn't mean that it's, just because you're less qualified that you're wrong. And so that's where, again, we got to get the facts out. We have to get the debate out, and, as long as we have an environment where we're not censoring and we're suppressing certain ideas, let the invisible hand kind of navigate through, and we get closer to reality that way.
So
And so
you're not really trying to force people together. I mean, what you're really basically doing here is you're saying, let's hash it out in a respectful manner and let the chips fall where they may.
Well, two things. One is that. The second thing is, because we produce all the content is original by us. We create this environment where the reader will have some level of trust. Well, we're not going to just cite a quote that's just made up or that's misleading, which you get. I don't think most of the major networks make stuff up for the most part, but they do mislead.
Mislead.
Where they purposely cherry pick a fact that presents a certain narrative, or they ignore a certain fact, or whatever. There's a bunch of different tactics that they use. So we ensure that we don't do that. And so we want to gain that trust. We're looking at kind of next steps outside of enhancements is to start to have our own reporters and strategically kind of place throughout the major cities initially, where we're reporting our own news. Right now we have to rely on kind of what's available, and so it'll be kind of steps that way. It'll be a grassroots movement, but ultimately we have to gain that trust. And it's very difficult to gain that trust, but it's all it takes is one little miss speaking and you're out. And so when you're a big network, you can afford a few of those. When you're us, you can't afford one. And so it's just really important that we're very cognizant and we gain that trust one person at a time. And
so talking about trust, and this is another big topic that's going to be coming up again next year, and obviously 2 years later. So politics. Now, usually politics campaigns spend a lot of money on all social media platforms, and I'm assuming that as you're growing, they're going to start throwing money your way. So how does 4B stay unbiased when people are trying to spend money on your platform, obviously for a biased reason, such as elections?
Yeah, so we don't currently have any kind of space where we sell ads. We use a separate Google service where they kind of control it. I have some leeway to a certain extent, but that's something that where we are today, we're not going to be able to affect any real change. We have to, so there's like.
So you're using a Google service, but if Google decides they're going to put a political campaign ad up, you're okay with that?
Oh, I'm not saying I'm okay with it. I'm saying I only have limited control. So I can control certain things, and I can recommend certain things, and I can cut certain ads off and things like that. But at the end of the day, the service that we have that's native within our apps and our website is through that service. And so, what I was going for is like there's a million problems, right? And we're laser focused on fixing 1, 2, 3. We're not here to fix all million of them. And
no,
so,
I'm not saying that though. But next year, that's going to be a forefront problem, and then 2 years later, obviously a bigger forefront problem. And I'm sure that if your platform is growing like you say you are, and you're going to be a bigger percentage market share then, and people are going to come to your platform to air out their grievance one way or the other, or state their facts one way or the other, that's going to be part of it. And then there's going to be money spent within your obviously within your apps and your website. And I'm just trying to know if we're going to
Yeah,
have the conversation, right?
yeah,
And you're
absolutely.
talking
It's a good
controversial. You
question.
don't shy away from nothing.
Yep.
What are we going to do about the election issue? Because obviously, I guarantee it. You're going to see it in the news. You're going to see it in Congress before it comes up. I mean, it's just going to be one of those hot button issues. I would say probably, I'm going to say by March of next year, we're going to start to see the rollout of what are we going to do about ads in elections, election ads in social media, news, and what they're going to expect platforms like you now to do more, right? Because we haven't even talked about Section 230 yet.
Yep. No, I mean, I think for us, like, we can only control what we can control. So, the content is king on our platform. We control the content, everything about it, 100%, because we own everything. We produce everything. That's all we can focus on. So we want to make sure if it's a Republican, Democrat, we have equal opportunity to both. If it's certain left ideology, right ideology. And I do want to kind of emphasize one thing, because this is important. I mentioned at the beginning, we have 13 categories. Politics is one of them. And so I know it's a hot button issue today, but we don't want to be just a political website. Unfortunately,
I'm not saying that. And understand,
Yeah.
I'm not saying the category itself where people are going to come and you're going to write unbiased articles. I'm not stating that. What I'm stating is the money in politics that flows out to social media and social news platforms is astronomical at times. And I honestly, I hope it comes your way. I hope you're able to get the funds that help you raise what you want to do and bring it to another level. I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say, though, is outside of what you can control, which is the conversation and the topics that go up, there is a lot of obviously ads and political ads and stunts by political campaigns and things of that nature that go out on these social media platforms because they want to accept the money. And I understand why. At the end of the day, in order for you to do what you're doing, you need to turn a profit. Totally get it. I'm a business guy. I totally get it. I respect it. But what are you going to do to control the influence, say, of one versus the other?
Yeah. So the only thing that I can do, I have had, even in this short time, had offers as well to produce, and luckily they weren't political; they were other things. But is if I'm not here for 1 year or 2 years, I want to create this giant, and I want to create this movement that not only will be a successful platform, but also will bring much needed positive change to society. I am not going to sell out for or compromise the integrity of the platform of being unbiased or security. There's a bunch of kind of foundational things that I've set as like non-negotiable. Those things will not change, and if I change those, then I'll kick myself out, because people will know that. People know what I'm saying, not only just me personally, but on the platform, what I'm advertising. And people are not stupid. People figure things out, and they know, hey, 4B is saying this, but you know what? I saw this. They'll figure it out. And so I think that, I'll be checked, which I should be checked by the people. And that's how it should be. And so if I say things, or if I claim things as a platform, but I'm contradicting that, then I should be, people should turn away. They should go somewhere else. And so I think for me, I have set these foundations and set these guidelines and rules by me and the team, entire team, which is a diverse team. But I can tell you what we do. This is kind of funny, but what we do most of the day is we bite our tongue. And the reason I say that is because there's so much that we disagree. We're all humans on the team, and we all disagree with at least 50% of the topics, or at least 50%, because obviously there's another side to it. But that's not our position. Our position is to give equal opportunity, and we stick to that. And if we stray from that, we will price ourselves out. These giants out there, we're no match for them if we compete at their level. We cannot. They out budget us. They out in every way. The only way we can win is we stay true to our strategy, and people know this is much needed, and they're craving for something like this. And we gotta keep to our morals and our integrity as a platform, and we will be successful. It's a grassroots movement. I'm bootstrapping this whole thing, which is fine. I signed up for it. But this is a long distance race. This is not a sprint. And, so I don't know if that kind of answered your question, but I'll price myself out, or I'll kick myself out if I'll do it. So that's who's going to keep me in check.
So last thing, because we're about going on an hour. I know you're busy, and obviously I'm busy, and obviously it's getting late for a lot of people who are on the East Coast, 9 o'clock when I have you. So let's talk a little bit about Section 230 and where 4B stands on that. And you as the founder, where do you stand on Section 230? Should it stay as it is, or does it need to be revamped to fit a modern time?
Well, I think Section 230 or any kind of regulation should be completely gone. I am, to me, that's, anytime the government comes in and tries to control something outside of criminality, I think that, it's always not the better option. And if you measure, any kind of policies that go outside of criminality, the bare minimum, there's always, the consequence, and there's unintended consequence, and then so on and so forth. But it's just, if you measure it, it's just disastrous. And so if we have a free market, and we have free expression, and we embody the First Amendment, which is really important to 4B. The First Amendment is what we live by. Mm-hmm. We have a little bit extra. So like if you're personally attacking another user, for example, even if it's verbally and it's not a threat of violence, we don't allow that, because it's just, that's something that, we're not here for that. But outside of that, unless you're condoning violence or, extreme sexuality, or anything illegal, if you have an unpopular opinion, then you have an unpopular opinion. That's not my position to stop that.
But is it an opinion, or we already talked about this? A lot of the social media platforms, news platforms, either outright lie, which I'm not going to say that's the majority of the time, but are definitely misleading almost all the time.
Yes, and I think that I don't know if the people have a history of 230, but it's essentially a protection so that they don't get sued to oblivion or is sued out of business. And so I think that again, if you're doing the right thing, then you should be fine. And the reason why they need that is because they're using that as a shield, right? Mm-hmm. And so they should not have a shield for those, especially the giants. They should not have those shields, and they would behave very differently if they didn't have that shield, which would be beneficial for society. And
I'm with you.
That's partly driving a lot of the divisiveness and a lot of the mess, and the just 100% for profits is. I mean, Section 230 is one of the reasons why. There's a lot of reasons why. But again, anytime you have government in there, that tries to play God, you can only do that if you have God abilities. And unfortunately, I'm not aware of any human or any entity on earth that has God abilities. Maybe I'm wrong. But until we have that ability and we have all that data and we can process all that data instantly, as if, God, if you believe in God or not, you're going to be disastrous. You're going to mishandle that. And so that's what we see as as a consequence of that.
Well, I definitely agree. No one should be shielded. And I think, I think the easier solution to this, because I don't think Section 230 will be amended in a way that is ever going to be useful, because let's just be honest. I mean, I'm older than you, and let's just face it. Media from my time has changed from media from my father and grandfather's time. And I'm sure that as I get older, media is going to change again. But I think the one thing that hasn't been enforced that would change the whole, I would say, in media environment is enforcing monopoly laws, right?
Well, I think this is a deeper one, and this might.
No, I'm just saying, listen, because you believe in free market, right? But here's the thing. Yeah. The monopoly law, I do believe in, because let's face it, even like Microsoft and things, I mean, there should be monopoly, because now there's no one who can compete. Like you are trying to compete against giants because they're monopolies, period, the end. I mean, it is what it is.
But it's a little bit more sophisticated now. So like we have to ask, because, you have to take steps back. How did they become that big? is because of the government. So like Amazon, for example, like if me and you wanted to start a Amazon equivalent, right? And we go into a city, so we're going to open a warehouse. Okay, this is what the taxes is. This is what it's going to cost. This is how long it's going to take. Amazon goes into the same city. They're going to say, we're not going to pay tax for 10 years. We're going to get billions of tax breaks. We want this. We want this. We want this. We want the roads to do this. And what is the city going to do? Exactly what they say.
I understand.
So what I would say, and I can go back another step and another step and another step, but what I am saying is it's not about the monopoly is the end of the road, right? What you're talking about. What I'm saying is it should never get there. If we have a truly free market system, then Amazon would never be able to get that big because someone else would come in and they would invent or they would come up with a more efficient, productive, better product and service. And that will keep Amazon from getting too big, right? It's just a natural free market, just like an ecosystem. You have lions and you have prey and you have all of that. It's always balanced until you introduce something or you try to.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you, except for one thing. We're already down that road. So the only way now for recourse is enforcing the monopoly laws. Because listen, I agree. It should have never gotten there. I'm not disagreeing with you on that, Mayor. I'm saying, but we're talking hindsight. We're not talking now. And now I'm saying right now,
you take away those protections. So you take away Section 230.
I'm saying outside of Section 230, if you can't revamp Section 230, the only free market solution is to enforce the monopoly laws that have not been enforced.
Well, what I'm saying is like you need to dial back all of the laws. So like cities should not be able to give tax breaks to billion-dollar companies. They just shouldn't. I don't know. Like it should. If you're going to do anything, it should be me and you as individuals. We want to open a company. We should be the ones getting the break. Why are the breaks going to Amazons? And why are the Apples of the world? Why are all of these large corporate Walmarts getting all of these? When we talk about minimum wage, Walmart loves that. They love $15 an hour because what does it do? All the small businesses get shut out. Right. But again, that's another example where we think from the heart. We're like, hey, people should make more. So instead of having that, like minimum wage is a good example. So let's just say if there's no minimum wage, right? And I pay $1 an hour and I have a restaurant. Well, you're going to look at that and say, hey, you know what? I can still make money and I'll pay $2 an hour. And you open a restaurant. And guess what? You're going to hire better people than me. Another guy is going to come and say, I can pay $3. You know where it's going to stop? Where the market says it stops.
Absolutely.
There's going to be $13.43 or whatever that is. And that's absolutely what the minimum wage is in Wichita, Kansas. When you go to New York, it might be $17 and some cents. But there's no person that can set that. The market needs to set that. And that's what the most productive and efficient way to do it. I understand the fear of, we go back to like slavery and things like that. But keep in mind, those things, again, had government help. Anytime you had government help, anytime you have censorship, things like that happen. Government's job should be, in my opinion, is to enforce criminality, is to enforce the laws. They're not there to pick winners and losers. They're not there to have a strategy in any kind of private business sector in doing that. Now, if I go and I kill people or I, pollute the earth or I do other things that are against the moral and ethics of the world, that's where the government needs to step in. But outside of that, they should not be picking winners and losers. And that's what they are doing today. Things like Section 230, things like, like the tax breaks that they get or the minimum wage or all of these things, I can go on and on, are examples of government's good intention, but the results are disastrous. And we see the consequence of that. So I know we can go on and I can.
We could listen. I love talking to educated people. And that's why I tell people, and I think that's why a lot of people like coming on my show is I don't claim anyone's ever wrong. I mean, I believe you are right and you believe you're right. And I believe you have valid points. And I point out tonight, there's a lot of issues that I agree with you on. And, I hope people get that from this show is that, I want to interview you. I love the way that you present and, I want to get more information. So, it's not about me. And that's why I always told you it's not about me. So tonight was about you. Great representation of you. I love the ending though. Very passionate on some certain topics where unbiased, but you showed your bias for business, which is a positive aspect, which was great. Because I think in all honesty, like I said, for me to buy into your platform, I don't care about the platform itself. I care about the ideology behind it. Why am I going to invest my time in 4B? Well, Amir says, and Amir's showing this is his core belief. This is what it's wrapped around. And that is, I think, the message that needs to be there. So when I go to do a short clip of this video, what have you, I want you to give me your quick 30-second elevator pitch on 4B.
All right. You want me to go now?
Absolutely.
All right. So 4B is a social news platform where we provide original content from both sides of any topic. We have 13 different categories, from beauty and makeup to politics and news to science and technology. And it's a place where you get exposed to the other side. Everything is short form, it's concise, it's fact checked. We have rigorous standards to ensure that. And so the content you get, you're not able to get that anywhere else at all. You'd have, today you'd have to go to one place and another place and put that together. Even then, it's not presented the same way. The social aspect of it really is conducive to civil discourse and, ultimately bringing people together. That is the ultimate goal. And you can still disagree and bring people together. And that's unfortunately where I feel like a big miss in society today is, if you disagree, not only do you not come together, we're out here killing each other for some reason if we disagree on a topic. And so that's where we're different, is that we're not hating on the other side. We just want to expose you, and we can disagree and still be friends and still be on the same thing and talk about these issues. And in the end, we'll be better off as a group, as a society, if we go this route versus what you see today.
Awesome. So what we're going to do is, I want you to stick around for a moment, but I want to thank everyone who's watched the replay of this or who is listening on the podcast. Thank you, Amir, for coming out and being with us. I really do appreciate that. And again, everyone, I want you to go out and check 4B out for yourself. See, what Amir as a platform is. Make sure, give him some feedback. Again, his information is in the description. It's always going to be in the description. Give him some feedback. I'm sure Amir would love to get some actual real live feedback after you listening to the podcast or watching the live replay. So I appreciate it very much, and I will talk to you all later.
Thank you.
All right. So